have that later. Third-party meeting being sent. All right, so I want you to sit back for just a second. Kind of don't sit back, don't sit down, don't get slouchy. Don't think, oh, this is my time to take another nap. Everything that you're about to go for, everything that you're about to need is going to need your attention. Think about that. Your goals that you want, your desires that you want, your wants, your wishes, your hopes, your dreams, will it not require some new levels of attention? If you believe that it'll require new levels of attention, drop an A in the chat. A for attention. So as you begin to do this, and as you begin to become aware of what it is that you want to go do new, it's going to require more attention. Now, I have a phrase, a slogan, if you will, a saying, if you will. I help people have more of what they want by doing less of what they don't. Pretty simple philosophy, simple understanding. Don't do the things you don't want to do. Well, I don't want to have to work to create money. You'll never be able to create money if it's something you feel you have to do. So pick that situation, write it down. Actually, write it down for just a second. Whatever it is, could be money. Write down the big issue: money, relationship, leadership skills, whatever it is. And most people, right, statistically speaking, most will write down probably financial. And it's true. Money can solve a lot of things. The last time somebody in your world got sick who was in another city, in another state, in another country, and you weren't able to just pick up and go because you had work, and nobody expected you to go because you had work, and work is how you create income, and you can't just leave work, right? What if the challenge that you wrote down isn't money? What if you wrote down understanding independence? See, there's dependent. That might be where you're at now. There's independence, which seems to be the other extreme of that. And then there's interdependence. And a lot of us don't necessarily like to be in the interdependent part of our independence. We definitely don't like to be dependent. We kind of like it sometimes when people are dependent upon us until, Jim Rohn's favorite word, until they start to drive us nuts. This happens a lot in network marketing. We become so good at our profession that we create a whole bunch of dependent people on us, and we wonder why they can't go. They signed up for interdependence. They signed up for their own independence, and yet they don't ever seem to get there. It's because we don't let them transition. So maybe rather than finance, what if you wrote down the word independent? What if you wrote down independent with the full understanding that you could become independent in the 5 key areas of your life: family, finance, body, mind, and society? What would it mean for you to become independent as it relates to your social media? You're not tied to whether you have all these followers or people like your stuff, or whether you do things on social media or not. Anything that pulls you and causes you to drain your energy isn't independence. It might be a heavy interdependence. So rather than money, what if you became so independently successful that you didn't have to think about money before, right? What's the law of attraction say? What you think about and think about, you bring about. How do you know somebody is thankful for a current situation they're in? This is going to hurt. This is going to hurt on a Thursday morning. They talk about it. People The universe says that if you speak about something, you're thankful for it. You're asking for more of it. Well, Sean, I'm behind in my bills, and I don't. My relationship is going to crap. I'm not thankful for it. That's your interpretation of it. The universe understands that what you speak about, you are asking for more. Does that make sense? Think about that for just a second. Let that little soak in just a little bit, because if that can soak in and start to get some traction in that brilliant mind of yours, anything you speak about, you bring about. Could you imagine? I just had this image for help of explanation, because I know what I'm thinking. So my brain sometimes will work and pull from the universe, pull these ideas of ways to explain it so that it doesn't sound so odd. So here's a question for you. If all of a sudden I gave you a violin. Now, maybe you don't know how to play the violin. And I were to sit you down into an orchestra, right? Just put you not first chair, not putting the pressure on you, but just putting you into the violin section, the strings section of an orchestra. And you were required to play. Do you think we might hear your notes when the orchestra plays? Do you think we might hear something not quite right? That's the exact same thing happens that when you speak about your current situation, your lack of stuff, it is heard by the universe. It is heard by the audience. And so if it's heard by the universe, heard by the audience, it must say that that's the way that this music called you sounds. And therefore, people who don't like that music, what happens if you don't like the music? You can type it in the chat. If you don't like the particular music that you're listening to, what do? Do you change the station? Do you turn it off? Absolutely. Do you go look for something else? Do you stop listening to music altogether? No, you go find the thing that you want. Well, how many times have we gotten all excited about a particular activity or action or result that we're going to go work towards? I'm going to go work towards this result, whether it's a rank in my business, whether it's a financial amount that I want, whether it's a better parent, better relationship, better body. And the music sounds kind of odd because I've never been there before. And we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect. We just turn it off, put it off, change the station. Because we try this DIY, do it yourself method. That's really struggles. I'm a farm boy. I grew up on a farm. I can swing a hammer and run a screw gun. I can build stuff. It ain't the prettiest stuff, but I can build it. I can get it. I can make it look good enough. But you wouldn't want to hire me to be your carpenter, to go build your house, to do finish carpentry work. And here's the thing, you are doing finish personal development work on your skills so that you can have more of what you want by doing less and have less of what you want. The challenge is that you're doing it awfully rough. You read a book and go, I'm going to do that, and don't get to the end of the book. How many of us know somebody? Drop an E in the chat if you know somebody who's not finished, who's not gotten to the end of some of the books they bought. Maybe it might be you, but if you know somebody, right? We call that stuff shelf help. So if we can't get to the end of it, we never become the professional of it. How many of you have enrolled people who said, I'm going to the top, and they never got past the welcome page of the company's website? Have you logged in? Have you logged in? Have you done the stuff? Have you done the work? Have you checked your back office? Have you watched the training? No, I haven't watched the training yet. I want to, but I want to get my live account. I want to start making money. I want to get my nutritionals. I want to start getting healthy. And they don't take the stuff. They don't put in the effort. Right? Covey talks about, if I've got an hour to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend 30, 40 minutes sharpening my saw. Yet people use words. How many of you believe words have power? Well, words have power, and a lot of the phrases that I hear some people say in today's economy is, I'm going to rise and grind. Well, I don't know who on God's green earth wants to rise and grind. That doesn't even sound fun, but we say this because it's what everybody cool. I don't know, cool. Maybe I just dated myself. It's what all of the sophisticated people are saying. I'm going to rise and grind. Rising and grinding doesn't do anybody any good. Rise and sharpen sounds maybe better, but rise and grind. Why does there have to be such pain in success? So how do we layer this? That's the conversation I'm going to talk about when I go live in Instagram and different places. So the meditation this morning is about the words we use, the words we choose, and the words we layer. How many of us have heard in our own personal ideas that we can spiral down, right? And sometimes we talk about it, some places, some leaders, some mentors will say, well, you can also spiral up, and you can. So I want you to think for just a moment in the independence, right? If you wrote down independence on your page, I am seeking independence. When somebody asks you what you do, what would change in the mind of the listener if all of a sudden you said, I teach people to find their independence in life so that they can begin to live the life of their dreams? Doesn't it sound like independence might be the thing that could be the thing that would fix all things? If we became independent in our wealth, independent in our learning, we actually learned how to learn. We got very good. We went down a path. We got so good in a particular niche. I personally don't need to know how to sew. I don't. That's not a skill set that I am going to spend time at. Now, I may later on learn how to knit. What? Well, we have sheep. And I may try knitting just because I could knit from my own wool that came off of my sheep. I'm not saying that's making it on my dream board right now. But at some point in the future, there may be a time where I say, okay, get me the tools to learn how to knit. Wouldn't that be cool? Feed the sheep, shear the sheep, do the wool, clean the wool, pull the wool, do all of the things. And then all of a sudden, make a hat. And they've got that thing, right? They've got that tool that goes around in a circle to make hats. Is that cheating? Maybe. But I made my own hat. I might want to say that one day. So now the question, I could hook a rug. Look at all of these ideas. Now, did you know you had that experience and that success available to share with somebody? What you just witnessed in the chat, where people have skill sets that are, somebody doesn't have any at all, and they're like, oh, I could teach you. Bring that back to your income model. Bring it back to the way you build business. Maybe you can't teach me knitting. Can you teach me being a good human? Are you an example of a good human? Are you an example of how to help people have more of what they want and less of what they don't? The challenge is most of us are not asking people, what don't you want? What are you not willing to do? What's your non-negotiable? Have you ever had anybody teach you in a presentation, what's your non-negotiable? See, the reason that we have to understand layered success is that, think about the people who are in your organization, the people that you've worked with at work, the people who you have had to have some influence over. Are you teaching them how to fail? I don't think so. Then why do they struggle? The reason they struggle is because they have layered in their old methodology, their old beliefs, their old stories. In between the layers of your good conversations, your leadership training, your education, your company's back office, the skill sets that you could acquire, and they go off and they attempt success, DIY method, do it yourself method, and they fall short. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at the word independence. If you wrote it down on the paper, independence. What's the first letter? I. The reason that you have to make this decision is that you're the only one that can. You have to make the money. You have to make the organization grow. You have to do all of these things. You have to become a leader. You have to become this. So what if it was okay if all of a sudden you became independent and started to have your own thoughts? Now, the challenge is self-talk and neuroencoding and neurolinguistic programming and methodologies of meditation and all of these things. They have a tendency to layer themselves in as you write out your goals. Right? I teach people to find and create their definite major purpose. Most struggle at it. Everybody says, I want this, and I'm going to do this, and I want to create $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month, and I'm going to do this. Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich, he says, what is the price you're going to pay? And very few people will write out the price they're going to pay because we don't want to face that. We live in a society and in a social media environment that say, just do the work and you'll be successful. Sign up with me, read my book, take my course. It's all DIY. And until you find a place where the DIY is customized to doing it with you, you're going to struggle. How do you think you learned to eat? You weren't born and you had the skills to eat. You didn't have the motor skills to understand it. You would have figured it out and you'd have ate with your hands. You would have been, if you never understood, etiquette, you'd eat with your hands right now. Sometimes you do eat with your hands. Sometimes there's still food you eat with your hand. My point is that you had to find a way to find the food. How do you, right now, what are you doing? Who's helping you find your dreams? Oh, it's great to go to an event once a week and say, I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. I'm going to do this. And you get back home and all of a sudden everything's the same. Your spouse looked at you and said, oh, you went to another one of those events. How many of you have ever come back from a trip? Drop a T in the chat if you've ever come back from a trip and somebody said, oh, how was your thing? How was your thing? Did you make a lot of money? And you're like, no, I went to learn. Learn. You've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years. Why? How much more learning do you need? And they're right. The learning you need is personal undevelopment, not more personal development. Not yet. Until you take off all of the stuff. Imagine this. Here in this part of the world, it's becoming winter. It's becoming cold. Could you imagine you were going to go buy a new suit? You were going to go buy a $5,000 dress. You had an awards banquet. Would you have them measure you? Listen carefully. Would you have them measure you with your ski jacket on? Yes or no? Y or N? Yes, you'd have them measure you with your ski jacket on, or N, you wouldn't. So you would take off your jacket because they got to get to your frame, your body, to fit the suit to you, to fit the dress to you. Why are you listening and taking personal development books and tapes and trainings and audios and series and listening to it with your biggest fears and doubts still on you? You've created a dependence upon your old identity to be able to listen to your story. The only way you can hear your story, your new story, that future story, is with all of the insulation and all of the isolation called your past. Because it's too scary to think I could be successful. Quantum leap, you know quantum leaping. I can prove to you, you know quantum leaping, and you're capable of doing it right now. You're capable of, right? We talk about visualization. Your layered success can all disappear in an instant. I can prove it. I'm going to prove it. And if I can prove it, then it might serve you to pay a little bit more attention to me and to stop diluting some of the things that I share with you by focusing in other areas. Just saying, just offering you this opportunity. So here, I'm going to take you on a quantum leap. Some of you already know what I'm going to do. I want you to think back to your first kiss, right? With somebody you thought might be the one, or they thought you might be the one. Now, typically, if you're the female brain is probably giggling. Because my research in 40 years of doing this, it probably wasn't the most romantic kind of kiss. It was like getting licked by a dog. Guys, sometimes we think maybe we were the Don Juan, but here's what happened. Here's what happened. You went back to that first kiss. It wasn't yesterday, and it wasn't last week. I'm looking at some of you. I hope it wasn't last week. It may be a decade. How many decades ago was it? Just type in the chat. How many 10-year sections was it? Was it 2? Was it 3? Was it 4? How many decades ago was it? And why could you instantly do that? See, all of this from a year and a half, from 1.5 decades, 15 years ago, to 4 decades ago, 14 years ago, 40 years ago, I was able to take you on the same journey, and each of you were able to arrive instantly, quantumly leap back to the spot of a highly emotional, laughable moment now, without having to worry about what you ate or how much money you had or how any. This is the power of understanding quantum leaping. And the laws of the universe say that the law of opposites exist. And if you went back 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, you can instantly manifest into the universe 20 years, 30 years, 40 years in the future and be in that same physical moment now. Right? The future is worry, and the past is anxiety and frustration. That's why they call this now the present moment. Open it up. It's a present. So if you can go back 20 years, you prove to yourself that you can go forward 20 years. The law of the universe, the law of opposite, the law of everything is energy. It's only a matter of you determining how much time is in a year, and instantly you went back. And you can do the same thing by putting your dreams in true reality and in true place and space and move into that place. That's what I'm going to talk about here in just a moment on layered success when I go public, if you will. So the meditation this morning, I want you to look at that word independence. Are you all in? So you can be all in and still not be in the boat. How many of us have people on our team? How many of us have been that person on the team where we go, I'm all in, I'm ready, let's go. And you never get on the boat. You never get in the plane. You never get on the train. You never do the thing. You're never really in. I'm going to ask you in 2024 if you're ready to have 3 times your biggest dream, 4 times your biggest dream. Is it possible if you were to write down that independence and underneath there, write down a goal for income in 2024? A goal for you that you would want to create in 2024. I want you to look at that number. Is it possible to double it? Is it possible? Drop a P in the chat if you look at that number and say, I don't know how to do it, but yeah, it's possible. Drop a P in the chat. So if it's possible, then let me ask you this. Is it possible? I'm using this as an experience when I was at a GoPro a decade ago with Eric Worre, before he had his studios. And he had us write down numbers. And he looked at people's numbers. He says, okay, now double it. He said, now you'll get excited. He said, but you'll get serious if we truly do this and we triple it. It's a scary exercise. So now, if you triple it, can you do it on your own? Is there a book out there? Is there a training out there? Can you literally, do you have enough resources out there that you will do it on your own? Or do you need somebody kind of looking over your shoulder? Do you need somebody kind of giving you the nudge? Do you need somebody who understands neuroencoding, self-talk, who understands binaural beats, who understands all of the ways to combine all of this together so that you can have a customized plan that you will absolutely personally undevelop your old stories? See, if you could get rid of some of your doubt, doesn't it make it easier? That's the conversation I'm about to go have. So sit with that for just a second. Let that stir into your spirit. Let that arrive in your joy and in your awareness. And I'm going to play some music here. Go get yourself a cup of coffee. Go use the restroom. Sometimes this happens when we get a little nervous and anxiety. We have to use the facilities. And we'll be back in just a moment. So love you tons. I'll see you here back in just about 3 minutes. All right, everybody. Hang on. Bye for now.